Hey everybody, it's your man James, Mr. Glenn Treasure, back again with some more video action for you. Today is another jaunt into the realm of creativity as we show a little bit of artistry appreciation. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's where I take a piece of comic art from my personal collections that I own or have owned, and I tell you why I think it's so awesome, why I had to possess it, and maybe spark a little interest in you to start your own collection. Because there's nothing better than some original art, let me tell you, because it's the true collectible of collectibles, one of one. It doesn't get more collectible than that. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. And before we get into today's piece, I want to say make sure to drop a like down there if you like what you see here or you hear, because I always appreciate that. It helps out the algorithms. Also, be sure to leave some comments down there. Let me know what you think about the art, or anything I say, or anything at all. Like I said, you guys have the floor around here. I like to hear what you guys got to say. So give me some comments. I like that a lot. Also, be sure to share out some links so we can bring in some more people, because I always want to get those subscription numbers up. Better than the other direction. So let's do that. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you yourself have subscribed so you don't miss out any of the content of the stuff that I'm putting out around here on the regular. So with all that out of the way, let's get on into it. Today we're going to be looking at artist Kieron Dwyer, who some of you may know, some of you may not know. It's a very familiar name for those of us who grew up reading the Copper Age of comics. And so let's get on into our piece here today. And what we'll do first is get me off the screen, and then we'll bring up the art. And here we are. It's Captain America, number 345, page 1. And we'll big this up as always, so you guys can get the good shot here. Now, this is pure nostalgia for me. You can see this from 1988. This is pure nostalgia for me. I grew up with the Dwyer cap. This is, I loved his run because it's the John Walker run. I've always had a soft spot for John Walker, reading the storyline of him taking over for Steve Rogers and how he got treated by the commission and used and abused. I always felt Walker got a raw deal as Cap. He tried to do the right thing if you read those early issues of him before he went a little nuts. But I mean, I always had an affinity for this character. And so to own a page, and a splash page no less, from one of the issues of that run is very, very cool to me. And what's significant about this one for me is this basically sets the tone right here. This very page sets the tone for everything that's going to come over the next several issues. You got Walker here in the foreground watching a video of Steve Rogers in his captain uniform, which would later be Walker's own uniform as a U.S. agent, as he's being dressed down by the guy from the commission telling him he has to take out Steve Rogers. And as you know, these two had some animosity already before this, so it just sort of brings it all full to bear. And this is where it all begins. The countdown to issue 350 starts right here. And I just love this image. And you got Steve Rogers on all these monitors, and you got the great shot right here. The inks by Al Milgrom. Again, Al Milgrom, he gets a lot of flack for not being having the flair and the panache of some artists, like a Jim Lee or a John Byrne or a Todd McFarlane or a Michael Golden. He doesn't have that kind of verve. His work is very utilitarian. But here on these inks, I mean, look at how rich these blacks are. I mean, on Walker's face, on Rogers' outfit, on the guy from the commission. I mean, just totally soaked in. I mean, this is like opaque type of darkness, and yet he still gets in again all that fine line details around the edges, showing the musculature, showing the folds in the clothing. I mean, like this down right here, the scene right where the folds of the clothes poke out from the shadows because it's so dark. I like that. That's a small idea. And even here, even though you only get to see a little bit of his shoulder, you get that chainmail scale look right here. That's something that could be easily lost with an inker who, doesn't have an understanding of how to layer the shadows. Like, see right here, it's very dark, and then it lightens up with these scratchy lines, and then almost nothing by the time you reach the edge. And that's that gradation of shadow, without the help of gray tones, without the help of computerized coloring that we have today. That's the classic way to do it. And it gives that texture, that feel. Like you feel if you rub your fingers over that part, you would feel the scaliness of the chainmail. And that's cool. I like that a lot, And again, it's just a great, impressive splash. It's like, almost like we're standing right over Walker's shoulder looking at all this, And I like that. The great shot here, the great, profile of Walker's face. You know, it's just a really great image. Al Milgram's inks are perfect on this. I gotta say, I thought him and Dwyer were always a great team. You know, I really enjoyed this era of Cap. It's like I said, it's certainly one of my favorites. You know, and this is what the splash page is intended to do. You know, it's to grab your attention, to make you focus on what's happening. You know, again, you got the great positioning of the guy from the commission here with the fist on the one side, then pointing hard at the screen at the other. I mean, it draws your attention. Little details like, look at this, the lines in his glasses from like the lights from other monitors on the other side of the room behind Walker. I mean, it's little things like this that really set an image off for me. You know, how you get those little fine details in there. You know, and you know, Dwyer's art, he's got a very angular style, but again, he's not too cartoony. Because again, like I said, what do you always notice with cartoony? I've pointed this out in the past episodes of this. Real thick, bold lines all around. You know, like everything around is all a thick, bold line. Like you can see here in the face. Look at the fine lines right here around the lips and the nose. You know, it's a little bolder around the chin, but then look it up here, up the upper part. It's very fine line. You know, the commission guy, no thick lines for him on the top half. It's on the bottom half for the shadow, is where he puts it in. And you can see right here on the hands, you know, very fine lined. You know, even Steve Rogers in an all black costume, and yet the lines are thinner on the outer edge. You know, they're not, you know, there's the one here, you can see this one here is a little thicker, you know, because of the shape of the body, but you can see, look how thin some of these lines are. Very fine line. And that's something, again, you don't think about it when you're reading stuff, but as I've taken more and more time to appreciate comic art over the years, I'm coming to see how some of this really plays into it. You know, you got to know your line weights are so important. You know, because it goes from being cartoony to being something more serious-minded to something, you know, almost like a apparition, almost like a ghost, depending on how thick you make your lines. And you have to understand how those line weights work. And that's something Dwyer shows right here, is he understands line weights perfectly. He gets them perfect. You know, even in the wing on the mask, just super fine lines. You know, again, bolder back here on the curve of the wing, but like look at the feathers, just real quick lines, not too thick, very super thin. Again, this is a guy who understands how important line weight is in your drawings. And again, this is something a lot of guys don't talk about. You know, when you see guys doing tutorials and stuff, most of them don't talk about line weight a whole lot, and yet it's such a key foundation to a great image like this. You know, one to attract your attention, and you got to know those line weights. So let's go ahead and check out our published version here. You can see here, there it is. See, and you can see now how those line weights really affect, you know, the way things look. See, like I said, the bridge of the nose is thicker, but then like down here is thinner, and yet it all still works. You see, those line weights, you know. Actually, in this case, I think they're like kind of accentuated by the colors. You know, again, another case where colors didn't detract from anything, I think it might have actually helped it. You know, and again, just you see like the reflection in the glasses. Look at I like the blue that's brought in here on Steve Rogers. You know, you got the super white highlight on the edges, but then you got the blue down the main part, and I like that. You know, again, it gives it dimension. It gives it depth. And again, this is what you want in a good color. So a good colorist needs to understand stuff like this. They understand about how to maximize the colors when you know, working on the line weights, when working in the shadows, how to maximize those effects. And that's what you know, obviously what Bob Sharon does. He's really good at this. He shows exactly what you want. I mean, it's a beautiful splash page. Again, it totally sets up everything's going to be happening for like the next several issues, right up to the showdown between Rogers and Walker, and you know, just a perfect setup. You know, and of course, as always, our cover, a great Ron French cover, again inked by Milgram, and again a very well done job by Milgram. I think he did very well Friends' work. Although I'll say personally, I think probably Brett Breeding is the best inker for Ron Friends, but Milgram does a very more than apt job. And again, I love that split screen type of image. One side with Rogers, the other side with Walker. Just a great image. And even we our title of the story is right on the cover, Surrender. I mean, just great stuff. This was a great time to be reading Captain America. This was a great time to be just reading comics in general. But I really, like I said, I will always have a soft spot for this run. I will always have a soft spot for the John Walker Cap. And it's definitely one that I think more people should look into. And definitely check out Kieron Dwyer. The man knows how to lay out a page that, with those perfect line weights, with the perfect symmetry, to give you the maximum impactive effect that you're supposed to get from a splash page. You're supposed to feel like you're in the moment when you're looking at a splash page, and this is what you feel in this. Even something you see as mundane as like a status report almost, like this is like stuff that happens in the government all the time. People come in and talk, and yet the dramatic way he presents it, Steve Rogers, big as life on that screen. You got the guy with, the guy from the commission looking forceful, pointing and the fist, and you got Walker in the foreground, just sort of taking it all in, just as you're taking it all in. And again, it's just an excellent splash page. I really love it. I was so thankful I was able to get this. Again, like I said, from a very nostalgic point for me, my favorite Captain America run, and just like I said, I grew up with the Dwyer cap, and so it's just, to me, this is Captain America to me. And again, just I love it so much. I couldn't pass this up when I had the opportunity to obtain it, and I'm so glad that I did, because like I said, it's just an excellent example of how to properly use the splash page to set the tone for everything you're about to see, and that's exactly what a splash page is meant to do. If you're not doing that with your splash pages, you're basically, kind of wasting them. And it is one thing I hate, is wasting talent and wasting good art. So that's definitely not the case here. Kieron Dwyer, again, his cap run, it's well remembered and fondly remembered for a good reason. And this splash image is one of those reasons why. Again, very ably and complimentarily inked by Al Milgrom, another legend in the industry who's been around probably longer than even he'd like to probably admit sometimes, I'm sure. But yeah, there it is, Cap 345. A great page, a great splash, some great art. And there we have it. Another beauty from 1988. Again, just personally to me, very personal, nostalgic point for me. But I hope you guys enjoyed checking that out. It's some good, sweet art, as always. And I'll be back more with some more stuff. Like I said, I'm working on some things in the background, and we'll see what comes of all that. But I want to thank you all for joining me today, and just remind you to, do like, share, subscribe, and, leave some comments, all the good stuff. And be sure to check out those links down below so you can see more stuff that I'm doing on the channel, because I'm trying to get lots of product out there for you guys, lots of content. So I'd like to know how I'm doing on that. So check some of that other stuff out, and, share out some links and whatnot, and, some other places you can reach me, on Twitter and MeWe and places like that. So definitely use those as well. And I will be back soon with some more stuff for you. And until next time, take care.